Hello, Gothic friend. This is Alice, and you are in Gothic Land. And in fact, you are in the new section of this video podcast called The Road to Self-Recognition. This is going to be a space where I'm going to interview researchers, writers, and psychologists. We're going to see the Gothic, we're going to see horror from the other side. You're going to be in different mini-series with different people, and we're going to be targeting all those aspects of the Gothic that we love and we learn from, and we get to learn more about our own identity. So we're going to open this section with a mini-series with a teacher and horror researcher from the University of Ankara, Tugce Kutlu. And with her, we're going to open an analysis about identity, humanity, human side of things, beliefs, love, death, grief, loss, by analyzing Midnight Mass. So spoiler alert for those who haven't seen it, but you're gonna learn so much from here. So welcome to this new section, and we hope you enjoy it, and see you there. Now we are there. Hello, Tugce. Good afternoon. How are you?
Hi, how are you? I mean, it's basically at night here, so I can say good evening back.
Good evening. Yes, it's 5 in Spain, so is it 8 for
Yeah,
you?
it's seven in Turkey.
7 in Turkey. You see, this is fantastic. This being able to talk to people all over the world. I love it. Last week I was talking to a Venezuelan person living in Sydney.
Ooh, that's great. I mean, what a worldwide interview.
That's right. Yes, we're traveling all over the place, everybody now. So this is fantastic. It's great to see you again. Long time no see. We've been talking, we were saying before.
Yeah.
And what have you been up to recently? I mean, I interviewed you 4 months ago,
Yeah.
and it seems like yesterday, and a lot of things have happened in your life.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about what you're up to recently?
Well, a lot of things happened in my life. Well, I was working for a television. I am a PhD student, but I was working for a national television company. But then a position opened at my school as a teaching and research assistant, and so I'm starting that job. I will have a tenured position at the university as a researcher. And that's why I'm really happy, because that was my kind of dream job. Everyone has dream jobs like being a pilot and stuff, and mine is being an academic. So well, that's happening, but sad things also happen. I lost my grandmother last month to COVID. which was very, very sad for the entire family because it was so unexpected.
Right.
But like years of researching grief, it doesn't really prepare you for the real stuff. I mean, it still, punches you in the heart. So that was also another thing that happened. But life moves on because life is for the living, I always say. So we should honor the dead, but try to go on living as we did before. So how have you been, Alice?
Yeah,
What are you
I've been very.
doing?
I'm not in the academia as you are, and I'm very, very jealous. I'm doing it all a little bit by myself on my own, pretty much between kids, schools, things going on at home, business, and creating my own brand, like building it up.
Oh
And
my
yeah,
God.
super busy taking all the advice that I got from you last time and looking all the books. I still haven't managed to read things that you've sent me because people keep sending me recommendations. But yeah, a lot of the things that you were saying in our last meeting, they still, they keep coming back and they still resonate. And grief, as you were saying, is such an important thing. And I've been looking into grief since we talked last time. And where can we find it? How can we help other people with this? And actually, it's not easy. And I think you're so necessary in this program because we talk about grief. We talk about the dark sides of life, death, the black and whites, the in-betweens. We talk about these shadows. And so really, Alice in Gothic Land is kind of gone more and more specific into identity and into the shadow self. So you fit perfectly well in here, precisely because of
Shadow self, me, yes.
exactly how your
Definitely. We fit
is
together.
exactly we fit so well as well. So you told me, I think it was you who told me about midnight mass, and
Yes, I have.
I think it was, I was like, hey, I need to watch that. And then my husband said, hey, look what's there on TV. He's the one controlling all the Netflix consuming Netflix. And yeah, then we went and I actually took notes on while I was watching it. And I thought this is going to be for working up with Tugce. So we've got for everybody, we've been talking about it. It was going to be just an interview for an hour. But then as topics were coming up between us, we decided that maybe
I
we
know.
should be a bit serious. So in a way, we're going to see how it goes. But the idea is to create
Yeah.
just this mini series because Midnight Mass is so full, so packed of,
So packed, so
of
packed, so much to unpack there. I mean, Mike Flanagan. I'm such a fangirl for Mike Flanagan. You know this. And
yeah.
so the viewers should also know this. They should be warned that I'm a big fangirl for Mike Flanagan. I think he understands grief like no other person. I mean, he's been through a lot, and we will talk about this in on the series as well while we're discussing Midnight Mass. But as a kind of like introduction, I think Mike Flanagan is one of those people that comes once in a generation, I
Mm,
think, and that they understand like human emotion, human feelings so well. They have been through so much that they can convey all this pain and trauma and grief. And I think we are lucky that he lives in our time. And I
true.
think we are going to see much more from him in the future.
Yeah, I hope so because it touches a nerve, doesn't it? It really does that. It touches a nerve. So I think
Yes.
if you want, I'm gonna do one of my things. There you go. This is what we're talking about today.
Yes, I love your surprises. I love this.
Yeah.
Yes. Look at us. I love your energy in this. Like you're really happy.
Well, I'm interviewing you, so I can be that. We
Yeah,
have,
that's true. That's true.
well, you're in the middle. At this time, you're in the middle because you're the center today. So I don't take over.
Yeah.
I let you
Thank
go.
you. Thank you. Thank you. And
But
I have like I have a vampire next to me. That's great. I should just run away from there as soon as I can.
This is a spoiler alert program, people, because we think that, and I think you will agree with me, Tugce, that if we don't go into the spoilers, we cannot get to the core of what we're trying to talk about here. So, people, if you
Unfortunately,
haven't
yes.
seen it, if you haven't watched it, it's not a problem that you see the spoilers if you are the kind of people, the kind of person that you like watching what other people have to say and listening, and watching it and having an opinion on your own. But if you prefer watching the series first, go there first, watch it, and then come to us again. You know, this is an evergreen. We're not going anywhere. So, spoiler alert.
Exactly.
So,
big spoiler alert.
exactly. And before we go into talking about this wonderful series that there's so much to learn from, I encourage everybody to support us because the project is growing. You're supporting Alice, we're supporting Tugce, because I'm going to be sharing everything that you donate with her there. The coffee is a page, for those who don't know. It's a page where you can donate. You can buy us a coffee. You can buy us a car. Hey, a car would be nice. But it's
They will buy us a car? What? I didn't know about this.
with all the money we want to make here.
I love that the selections are coffee and car. It's like
it could be so a miniature
different.
car. It could be a miniature one. And really, it's a place where we're going to try to build up more content. So based on whatever we talk here and in YouTube and then in other places, there are going to be extra activities. We were saying maybe it is the presentation itself is a mini class too. It's not just an interview, but we have a quality speaker here. We have someone with a background. There's a lot of work put here. If you're benefiting from it, then we just appreciate that. Like a lot of people offer a little bit of support so we can continue giving back to you as well, because we're doing something very special in this place, which is talking about all the uncomfortable things of life. The first question, this is for you Tugce, to start getting a little bit a taste for those who maybe haven't seen it or they want to see, okay, let's start from the bigger picture and then we start narrowing down, if that's okay with you. So what is Midnight Mass all about for you? Because I have my opinion, I've read other people's opinions, but you probably have your own.
Yeah. When I first watched it, like in the first episodes, I was under the impression that it was about grief, because Riley, the main character, well, if he's the main character, I don't want to spoil anything just right now, but he's kind of the main character. I'm not explaining why I'm saying kind of. So he's kind of the main character, and you start with his trauma. You start because he kills a young girl during a car accident that he caused while under the influence of alcohol. So we start with him getting out of jail and going to the town, Crockett Island, where he grew up, where he was born, to his family. So we kind of understand that it will be him dealing with trauma, grief, addiction, and all that stuff. But then everything changes, in a heartbeat, like around episode 3 or something. You're like, what? Because it is so surprising. You're not expecting. You're seeing a community, a very religious kind of community, and they're a Catholic community, and there's a young priest that joins the community, and he seems helpful. He seems he's trying to help, but then everything turns really, really dark, and really, really sometimes at points satanic and occult, like kind of like cultist. So I think Midnight Mass for me is at first look it's about trauma, and in second look it's about mortality. I think I would say that, because immortality versus mortality plays a huge part, like pivotal part in the series, because we as humans, we are so scared to die. We are so scared to get old. We are so scared to forget, like get Alzheimer's and, forget everything. We are so scared of all of it. But if there's a chance that we will not go through any of this, we will take it, no matter the cost. This series shows me this. But it also shows me that, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And sometimes it is paved with, yes, sometimes it is paved with love, even. If you look at the finale, the priest Paul's talk about why he did this in the first place. I mean, he talks about love. All he talks about is love, but but at what cost? At what cost, really? Midnight Mass is about love. It's about religion, blind faith, mortality, grief, everything. So that's why I said so much to unpack here.
Yes, yes, that's why we were thinking of the mini-series, because maybe rushing into all the different things that we can talk about, we might be leaving things behind. And since we both liked it so much, and I think it's got this touch of classic films as well. It reminded me of The Exorcist at some point. That's why I sent you that article.
Yeah,
And
I read it.
it's true, someone else found out the same, that this image of the priest at the beginning, and the journey of that priest that we see, is it to the wall of, what is it called now? The wall of lamentations? Is that called like that in English?
Yeah. He Lamentation in Jerusalem.
That's right. So I
Yeah.
thought, oh, this reminds me of The Exorcist. One of the,
Exorcist.
I think it was the second or the third, where we see how everything starts there, and
Yeah.
it's got reminiscences of a lot of other things. So it's kind of very beautiful how it's also made. So for you, what are the aspects that makes it so special? And now thinking it, like I was saying to you, it reminds me of other films. I don't know if it's for you the setting. There are things here that we're going to be talking about, like the camera and the colors. We're going to start getting into the Gothic elements too. But for you, what is it that made it so special?
Well, I mean, this is a really deep story, and I think it's a very personal story. And Mike Flanagan wrote an essay on this. I advise everyone to read it, because it tells the story of how Midnight Mass came to be. It's a
Hmm.
decade-old project for him.
Yeah.
This was to be one of his first projects, but every studio passed it. Like
Oh,
everyone was like no, every network was like no, even Netflix was like no. But
really?
yeah, after the success of The Haunting of Hill House, this time he tried once more, and they were like, of course, because like you're now Mike Flanagan and you're a successful filmmaker. And but he fought so much for this project, and you can understand why he fought so much, because it is so personal to him, because he is, as a person, I mean, he's sober for like 2 years now, I think 2 or 3 years, but he's a recovering alcoholic, Mike Flanagan. And that Riley is also fighting with alcoholism, so he's basically Riley. And that's like, that connection between the character and the creator, I think, lights up the screen. You can feel that this was written by a person who knows how, like, what you can lose by by means of addiction, And he was also an altar boy in a Catholic church. He was raised in Catholic church. He became an atheist just like Riley. So there are a lot of similarities between Riley and Mike Flanagan. And that, I think, that really shows up on screen. But for me, one of the reasons is the personal relationship, and the second, I must say, the acting. I mean,
Yes.
wow. I mean,
Yes.
you can write something, but in the hands of mediocre actors, it might it might not mean anything at all. But Hamish Linklater, Samantha Sloyan, I mean, in the role
Yes.
of Beverly Keane. Oh my God, what a villain! I think she's the villain of the story, not the
Yes.
vampire or angel, whatever it was. I think the villain of the story was Bev Keane, and
Yes.
what a performance! I mean, what I always say, horror genre is pushed out of award circles. You rarely see someone get an Oscar for a horror performance. I mean, the closest I think is Anthony Hopkins with Silence of the Lambs.
Right.
So other than that, you never see that. But if they weren't so adamant in pushing horror out, I think Bev Keane, like Samantha Sloyan in the role of Bev Keane, would get a Golden Globe and also an Emmy for this role. And Riley and Hamish Linklater, as I said before, as the Paul the priest, they're all great. And the cinematography, I mean,
Yes.
all that, the church should be a welcoming place, right? Because it's a place of worship. And but in this case, with the midnight edition and all that, it's this kind of like scary place. It's a kind of
Yes.
like Gothic place.
That's right.
You feel very, how can I say, like, you feel on edge when
Mm.
there's a scene in the church. You're
It's
kind of
very,
scared for the characters.
yeah, it's very
Yeah,
uncanny, right? This
it's
is
very uncanny, very
yeah,
uncanny.
trying to
And
talk
I'm
about.
going to Yes, I'm going to spoil something, but like Riley gets bitten there by the vampire. So it is also a place where someone kind of loses their life. So it's an uncanny place. It's a Gothic place, and it's so interesting the way that they used these. I think they built sets. The way that they use these sets are incredible. The colors, all that white, all that gold, celebrating Catholic Church, but then there's blood everywhere because there's also an element of vampirism in the film, and there's certain references to cults and satanic rituals, kind of. So I think a lot of things makes Midnight Mass special for me, like make Midnight Mass special for me. But I think these are a few of them.
Yeah, I think you said something very, very important there. And it's something that when I analyze books and I review books, I also talk about, which is how we can see the imprint of the author in a book. But in this case, the creator of this story, Flanagan, we can see him through the story, even having um, without having him saying, "This is what happened to me," or "This is, the references are in the real world."
Yeah.
You empathize highly with this story, because I think at one point or another we have all felt like that in a church. Now maybe believers will now go, "Oh," but even just being a tourist in a church,
Yeah,
have you ever felt that sensation, or a mosque, or
I
or
have.
a place of prayer? Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
well, this is kind of cult place. when everybody sings at the same time and everybody's praying and everybody's believing these things you cannot see, it's pretty scary, man. It's like,
I know, especially Gothic churches. There are a lot of them around the world. I went to Italy. I went to a lot of countries, and when I go to Gothic churches, I have chills. I don't know why, but they give me chills. All those, gargoyles and like statues and all that, dark atmosphere. It's kind of like a scary film in there. So it all shows, that you should fear God. You should fear the power of the church. So, and in this show, I also felt that, you should fear the power of the church. You should, because Paul, the priest, keeps talking about the vengeful God,
yeah,
he talks about a lot about Old Testament and how God is angry and vengeful. And I think it was Sarah's mother that leaves the church and says, we will never go to this church again. This man is not the man I know, because all the things that he says about God are not true. They're not true.
yeah. I think the fact that at some point or another we felt like all these different characters, depending on who we had in front of us, that it makes it so special. I think it talks to everybody. So it's very, very powerful indeed. Yes. I would like to go, before we go into more detail, I'm being a curious person and using this critical thinking and all this, I thought, well, what is the origin, the whole origin of a midnight mass? Because I know I'm in Spain, I've got, a Catholic background, Christian background, but I don't really go to church. I don't really know, you go to weddings, but you don't really think much about these things because, well, if the family doesn't really follow it much, then you don't either. And even though my husband's side, they're more religious and they go to all the masses, but it's kind of, the information goes like that for me, Yes, okay, whatever. Every time
I already forgot about it.
Yeah, well, no, it creeps me out. Church creeps me out, and I'm always thinking, God, am I satanistic here? Am I satanic? Do I have an evil entity in me? Because I feel like the creep. I love the place, but
do I have an evil entity in me? That's great. That's the first thing that comes to my mind. Evil entity.
Yes. So I was looking for these origins of midnight mass, and I found a couple of places, and I thought this was so interesting. And you probably knew about it already, but is this page I found called midnightmass.com, that the origins of these masses go back to Christmas Eve, the midnight vigil of Christmas Eve from the 4th century in Jerusalem. And this was found by a Christian woman named Ijeri. I mean, I didn't know any of this. This is how fantastic watching things is.
I know.
Because then you have these questions and you go and you look for them and you find this wonderful information. So she tells us she saw how the Jews held a midnight vigil to celebrate the birth of the Savior. Now, this is key for the series, the Savior figure. Who is the Savior? There's more than one. They all save each other from different moments. There's more than one. You start thinking about people self-sacrificing themselves for others, and then we have this image, that impressive image of this vampire. Spoiler alert again. When it's in the mass, it never talks. This thing. We'll have to talk about the vampire on its own, but it never says a word.
Never.
That is where Flanagan gets it right, because there's no words, there's just an image, and it's so powerful.
Exactly.
That horror is right there, right?
And you never get an answer to like what that was, what that really was. Maybe it was actually really an angel. I mean, you never kind of understand, I know, right? It could be a demon, it could be a vampire, because the only reason we say vampire is because it is so much in popular culture that, you know, vampires drink blood, they have wings, they fly and all that. They despise sunlight, because they kind of like go up in flames. Well, that's a reason to despise sun, I guess. But all of these things that we learn from popular culture and also legends and like folklore, that shows us that that creature was a vampire. But maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was something else. We have no idea. So
Yeah. Yes, it
yeah.
makes you doubt. Indeed, indeed. It's like at the moment, but I think it's very powerful because you doubt, I think, at the moment that the priest says, was it an angel? And you go, well, if the priest is saying he's an angel, I believe it. I think that's it. That's the moment that we get taken to these grounds. If certain people say certain information and some messages, is when we start doubting even about our own perceptions. And I think he's doing this wonderfully. He's playing with our brains. It's like, this is a
Yes.
craft. To do this is super crafty. So
Yes.
it's interesting that we've got in Jerusalem, we have this origin of the midnight mass, but then it's not just originated there. I also found that, and this, I think you're going to love this part.
That sounds really interesting. I love the picture already.
It's cool, right? This
Yeah,
is
it's
from
cool.
a blog page. I mean, I'm not plagiarizing anybody. I'm putting all the sources here, so people, please go and check them and follow these other writers, because people are doing a lot of work on different areas, so we need each other's support. But this one in this page that I recommend people to read because it's wonderful. It says that it originating from the Germanic, Romance, and Slavic regions, the midnight mass of the dead. And I think this is a mixture of things now. It's a
This is
special form of
great.
legend. Yeah, and you have here, yeah, just as she rushed out the door, they tore off her coat and she ran home like crazy. And we have this drawing. This is all in this page called Legends of the North. It's a blogspot.com page. And again, so it's very interesting for me how the same folklore, the same ideas are kind of different in different parts of the world, but they have something in common, and how we have inherited all this. But
Yes.
this is actually in this page, it is recorded as early as in the 6th century. So obviously the Jerusalem story comes first, but we have this one very close in time, just a couple of centuries apart. I don't know at what point there's been a connection, because there's like different ends of the world. But that makes me question, and probably it would be good for continue researching, is at what point it's just that human beings, we've got this necessity and we all coincide when we're creating our folklore, we have the same fears, and maybe these
Yeah.
different things come up. I mean, every religion or every culture, not even religion, every culture has a way of believing in something, either one god or more than one god. So what makes us all think about this idea of these religious plays turning into something satanic or evil?
It can. It can. I mean, this. I think all the places of worship. I mean, all the religions take something from one another. I think it's kind of like a network of information, and they share information. And I just want to quickly go back and to the other page.
Yeah,
And you said, who's the savior in midnight mass? And you
that's
said that there are a lot of sacrifices. And I will go on that because, Riley, first of all, he's a very, he has been through a lot. He has fought a lot for his life and for against addiction. And he fought grief, he fought everything basically. And then when you think that he might actually harm the only woman that he ever loved, you're like, no, please don't do this. And then, spoiler alert, he surprises you and he sacrifices himself.
That's
And
right.
that is a moment where I got legitimate chills. I got, like my eyes watered. I'm like, no, don't do that, because it was such a sad moment, and it was a pivotal moment, because like you're not expecting the main character to die so soon before the end of the series,
That's right.
and you're like, what the hell? But then Aaron sacrifices herself too at the end.
Yes.
So there are a lot of sacrifices, there are a lot of sacrifices in the show, basically, and a lot of, figures of like the redemption. Yes, I want to say redemption, because in Riley's case, when he dies, when he goes away, because that's the question that the series keeps asking. Riley and Aaron talk about death all the time. They talk about grief and death, and how, afterlife, and you see him on the boat with the girl he killed, and that's such an important thing, because he gets redemption, and
Yeah.
that's so important, I
That-
think,
yeah, that's really
for
beautiful.
religion. Yes, it's
Yeah,
a beautiful scene. It's a
yeah, but
beautiful scene.
I think he needed that kind of peace as well, because from the beginning he's living with these ghosts. This is something I wanted to talk about when we get to ghosts. Probably not today, or not in this episode, but the importance of the ghost here and the role that each ghost in the series has. And as you said, I think it's unexpected, and that's why it makes it so, whoa, what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
But in a logical kind of way, that was his escape as well,
Yeah.
because it was cursed already from the beginning. From the moment he had that accident, he was cursed. But at the same time, we have a savior, I think, in the sense that he was like, no, I'm not going down, considering he was an addict. He
Yes.
didn't get
Yes.
addicted to drinking blood and turning into a different kind of monster.
Yeah.
So that idea, that's kind of a romantic idea, I think, of sacrificing for your own principles. I'm a human with faults, but I'm not turning into this other monster. I already have my own problems, and this is just, you've conned me. And in fact, he realizes, he says to his mom, I think it's in episode 4, he says, there's something there, and that, Father Paul is lying to all of us. I think that's the line. I wrote lines as I was watching it, and he already has this intuition. He cannot be fooled. And at some point, I think you probably agree with me that you're thinking he's going to convert. He's going to convert. It's either going to be the savior and kill the monster and kill the vampire, and he's going to be like, "Doo,
Yeah.
doo, doo," or it's going down with him, or it could go in many different ways. And I think the choice of how to finish with him, it was actually even beautiful, because there was no escape for him, and Erin couldn't do anything for him. So it was awful for her, but at the same time, she could see why he did it.
Why he
So
did
it
it.
powerful, a very powerful image, that one.
So powerful.
So
And you remember that he kept talking, that he dreamt that they were on a boat. He kept talking about that. He had dreams about, two of them being on a boat, and, and it came to be. I mean, the premonition came true. So I think, and also about the, other religions, sharing the same kind of folklore, is that, humans, they share stories, and stories travel fast, really
true.
fast. And one of them takes something out of it and uses it in their folklore, and that's how folklore works. So you hear that, for example, like in Turkey, I can tell you a folklore story, and you would say, "Oh, I heard this before. There's one in Spain as well, just like this." And because there is information exchange. I mean, it's not as easy as it is now, but even back in, centuries ago, we could share stories,
Yeah.
because we could travel. So I think that's why there are a lot of, for example, like midnight mass has different meanings for different cultures and for
Yes.
different religions as well. But I think for our case, the second one makes absolute sense. The Germanic
Yes.
version,
Yes.
Mess of the Dead, Midnight Mess of the Dead, because the final episode might actually be called, it's not the name of the episode, but it could be called The Midnight Mass of the Dead.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't feel that it's out of place. And
Absolutely.
definitely. I mean, the this legend of, it kind of reminds me of the Day of the Dead of the Mexican tradition,
That's
of
true.
celebrating death as well. Death
It's
as
like
well. I mean,
Halloween, right? Yeah, it's that kind of Halloween.
yeah,
It's just that,
Halloween,
yeah, it's just
Samhain.
that, correct. If we think about it, yes, again, we can start connecting other cultures. But this one, yes, it's very similar to Halloween, or as you said, yes, is the Samhain. Is it called Samhain? Samhain?
Samhain. I think Samhain.
Samhain. Yes, different
Samhain.
people say it different way, and other people are getting really crazy. It really matter that. Yeah, but it's fascinating that also in Norway they started printing these in the late 1700s by a priest as well, and
Yeah,
it's
by
like
a priest. That's
like
yeah, I know, right? It's a very interesting that it was painted by a priest.
yeah,
But like, speaking of priest, I think Father Paul also sees himself as a kind of savior, as a kind of Jesus-like figure that sacrificed himself for his community.
yeah,
And that is baffling to me. That I can understand his kind of thinking, although I think uh, it's kind of crazy that
yeah,
he thought that this would be a good idea to bring this kind of monster. I mean, for him, it's an angel, but to bring this monster to an island. I mean,
yeah. I
what,
think
Father
yeah,
Paul?
I think it gets blind. It gets blinded by. It's a bit naive, if you ask me. I think how I see him is there's a lot of naivety because yes, it's true. He's very old. He's ill. It looks like he's almost about to die as well.
Yeah,
And he meets this thing in the middle of a crisis where he's about to face death. So in a way, he dies in that cave.
yeah.
He dies
He
there.
does, he does, he does. And he rises like the Lazarus.
Correct. So that's so again so biblical, isn't it? Because it's inside this cave. So yeah. And then he believes this story is obviously maybe because he's a pastor, maybe because he's a son of God, and then he's there thinking, right, it must be okay. I am saved. His religion, his belief is that strong that he kind of whatever happens from now on is supported by the fact that I am a religious person. How can I be beaten or by a vampire? And the vampire word never appears. So he's kind of is you cannot dislike him because his
Cannot.
naivety
Yeah.
and all time is carrying is and this is the danger, right? This is the dangerous thing. He cares about his community and he cares about
Yes.
his people, and yet he's brought death to them, and he's brought this evil thing to them, and it's only at the end when he realizes what he's done, but only when his beloved person says to him, "What have you done?" And then he goes, "Oh my God," like a child. That naivety is very childish and is so dangerous. How many times don't we have these people maybe in power, running and ruling countries
Yeah.
and manipulated by a bigger being behind that we don't see? It makes you think about your culture and it makes you think about where we live, the world we live in. And the fact that this was also made in pandemic time, I
Yeah,
think
it
this
was.
is very important as well. This because it's disturbing and it's stirring things in people's heads. So yeah, the message there, the figure of Father Paul is kind of, yeah, you cannot dislike him. It's like this child that has made a mistake and but by then it's too late. At what point is
Yeah.
he actually feeling guilty? I mean, this is very well acted as well. When the first time he gives the blood to what's the name there, the woman, the Alzheimer's woman, I've forgotten the name. When he gives his love, he gives the first time, he gives her the blood in this chalice,
Oh,
and he gives
yeah.
the first time, and I thought that, oh, what is that he's giving her there? It kind of clicked in the second time it went
Yeah,
round.
in your mind. Hmm.
And then she's starting to remember things, and you're thinking, oh, and you can see this sadness in his face. And that's what it gives you the idea. There's something else there going on that we don't know about between
Yeah,
him and this old lady.
this lady, yes.
Even before you know anything about the vampire or anything, you go, ah, and that's because he's performed really well by the actor.
It is. It is.
Amazing.
Both actors perfectly perform
Yeah.
the roles in that.
Yeah.
And about Father Paul, I agree with you. He has a kind of like childlike quality to him,
Yeah.
and the only time
Oh,
that I felt Father Paul, when I felt that, oh, he's not so good actually, was that he kills the town drunk in his hut, and I'm like, and he's trying to make sense of it. He's like,
that's
oh,
right.
his life was like already ruined and all that. I'm like, oh no, you're not
But then,
such a good person
but
at all, Paul.
he's saying this with this voice and so convinced that he convinces you.
Self-righteousness that he has, and you're like, oh, you're not so good at all, are you? And that's one of the scenes where I felt that not so much sympathy for the devil, but less so. But in the end, when he talks about, I can't remember the name of the woman, for God's sake,
But that's
Sarah's mother. I will call her Sarah's mother.
there's
Okay.
more. We'll have to
Sarah
look.
is the doctor's mother. So when Sarah's mother and Paul, they just sit, and he knows that Sarah is his daughter, and that they lost so much time together, and that he just wanted to get back those times that he lost with them as a family. And you're like, ah, you
Yes,
had
yes,
good intentions, man. I mean, it was all about love, but at
yeah.
what cost? As I said before, at what cost?
And what
That
cost sacrifice the whole place? Yeah, she was called Mildred. I just looked her up.
exactly.
Mildred.
Mildred, okay, Mildred. I mean, like, you destroyed the entire town. I mean, the only survivors are two kids and one sheriff. Like,
That's
everybody died. And how interesting it is that one of the survivors is a Muslim man. I think
yeah.
it's great. It's beautiful, beautiful. And I also want to say, as a Muslim-born person, the depiction of Islam on
Mm-hmm.
the show is one of the best I've ever seen. I
Oh,
mean,
that's great.
someone did their job really well, and they really conveyed the strong points of Islam as a religion, and how it is more, it's not the kind of like violent religion everyone seems to think that it is, but it's all more about love.
Yeah.
So, and acceptance of
Yes.
your loved ones.
I really did like that actually, and it
Yeah,
was
it
very
was beautiful.
positive. Yeah, I think the fact that there was just two of them, it shows how much in minority they were, how they could get discriminated, but then
Yeah.
also the twist of the son converting into Christianity.
Yeah. That.
Oh no, it's like what? But then yeah, it can happen, because it can happen the other way around as well. It depends on, you want to fit in as a teenager, you want to be part of the rest of the group. So
Yeah. Of course.
you don't want to be the different, but then you feel like you're disappointed and you're letting your father down as well. But yeah, I thought it was beautiful, and I wanted to check and see how much of how what we see there was accurate. But now I'm happy that you confirming, and that's how it is. This side of the Islam that we don't see, we always see the negative side, don't we? We always have these preconceived ideas.
Yeah.
But the everyday life of a Muslim person and a family,
Yeah.
it's really nice as well. And they were actually more normal.
Right. Right. Then the
Absolutely.
entire congregation.
Absolutely. They were super nuts. I mean, they could see, they were looking at each other at some point saying, what's going on here? This doesn't look right, but we're still standing because everybody else is doing. That's proper. Our religion is like that, it's like bah, bah. We're just doing the bell and bah, bah. We don't think about, is this right or wrong? This is critical thinking. You've got all the elements in front of you, but then at the same time, you want to belong. And it's very clever, the fact that we are in a little island, not many people, everybody knows each other. It's little town
I
mentality.
think 127 to be exact. That's so few, Can you imagine that you're living with 126 people on an island? That's
that's the amount of students I had in my school at some point, so not many. Yes.
That's so weird, really. And as you said before, like everyone's going like, ha 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 ha. And it's about, blind faith. The show, as I said before, like this show is also about blind faith.
Absolutely.
And, just nodding to everything the authority figure says, and just not thinking, not doing the critical thinking that you should be doing, and just saying yes, I will do anything that you ask me to, which is a problem everywhere. It's not just about religion, but if you say all right to everything anyone ever says, that's a problem right there.
That's true. Absolutely. You've already said you were talking about Flanagan's inspiration at the beginning. And I found again different sources. I've been looking at different places, obviously, to answer all my questions. For people who don't know what it looks like, I thought that was a good picture, because myself, I didn't really know what it looked like, the guy. So the creator of all this mess. So yes, what you were saying actually is that it's a very deeply a personal project that started a long time ago. And I have to say, the things that are marinated for so long, they come out nice. I mean, I think it's been worth its time having to wait for this, because it's come out truly, truly effective and really strong. A lot of people criticize the dialogues, the philosophical dialogues, but I think they were smack on. They were perfect.
So good.
Nowadays, we need to think. And the fact that we are living in a pandemic and people are not thinking is because they don't know how to think. And the fact that we have these long, but not so long that they're annoying conversations, for me, they were perfect. It's the kind of conversation that you might have with a very close friend or with your mom. I've had these conversations. I'm sure you have these conversations.
Of course, I have
these kind of conversations. So
we are having these kinds of conversations.
Exactly. So what is it about people? What tells us about people nowadays, the fact that they're finding these conversations too long? For me, it's a sign of a social problem. It's a sign. And probably someone who's watching this now might just go and switch off. But for me, it's a sign. And I'm reading it as something that we've got is an illness in our society. And I'm talking worldwide. I'm not talking just Spain or Turkey or Iceland. I think it's a global pandemic, but it's in the mind as well. And there's a very strong sentence in one of these this article from Screen Rant that Trevor Massey, who is the executive producer of the show, said that this series was an examination of how faith is a signpost to who you are, and so is what you fear. And I think exactly is what you were saying before. You were talking about faith.
Yeah.
And what does that tell? What does that say about us? And in this sentence, I think is key for that as well.
Yeah, I remember one time I went to a hospital and this old lady was sitting next to me, and out of the blue, she turns to me and she says, "Nowadays, people do everything by their fear of God, but they should do so by their love of God." And I was like, what? I was like in high school or something, but that stuck with me, that quote that she talked about, not doing anything because you fear God, but because you love God. And a lot of religion is, Father Paul is kind of right when he talks about the vengeful God. A lot of scripture is about how God destroys cities, destroys civilizations, and avenges what was done wrong in a community. So fear is kind of a part of the religion. In many cultures, it's like fear is kind of like a fundamental element in religion as well. Like a lot of people, I think, in Islam and also maybe in other religions as well, people do good or maybe they do not do bad because they fear they will go to hell.
Yeah.
And that is a big problem. I mean, we shouldn't do things because we want to go to heaven or we don't want to go to hell. We should do things because that's who we are and that's the right thing to do. And to know the right thing, you don't have to rely on a religion. You don't have to rely on a belief system. There is an inner compass in all of us, I believe, that tells us, what is right or what is wrong. I mean, to kill a dog is obviously wrong. And if you think this is right, there is a problem and you should see someone about it. And and of course, how faith is a signpost to who we are. That's true, because it also builds up character. And it shows how much of a sacrifice you can make in the face of your religion. It's also because a lot of the things in the religion are about sacrifice. For example, in Islam, you can't drink alcohol. That means that you sacrifice alcohol to be in that religion. Or, for example, in other cultures, there are things you can't eat, or otherwise you will not be a part of the religion. So religions shape us, both fear-wise and both personality-wise, I think. So that quote is really good.
Definitely. You're so true. So right as well. I think thinking about the religion I come from, certainly when I was at university, one of my teachers he used to teach us. He was called David Roas, I think it was his name, and he used to teach theory of literature or literary theory. And he was the first person who said to me, "Go and read the Bible." And I was like, "What?" "Go and read the Bible because that's the main story of all the stories that we've had later on." Okay. And that was a very clever point. And then he said, and also you will see that our religion is one of the most, we've got the most vengeful gods ever. And our religion is true. If you do this, it is always conditional. If you do this, this is the outcome. So we have a religion that we have to love our God, not because it's good per se, but because there's a punishment if we don't. So it's so wrong. We shouldn't be doing things for that reason. We should be doing things because they are wrong by themselves, and not
Yeah,
because you're going to go to hell or to heaven, or
so
there's
true.
this constant threat. And for me, that's a dictatorship of a form. So we have a very cruel God in our religion. I'd rather have a different type of religion where God is everywhere, is in nature, and something more cosmic and less a
More
divine.
affectionate
Correct, yes,
and
exactly.
forgiving, right?
Yeah, he's love and caring, and you made me. Why are you punishing me? I wouldn't do that to my children.
Yeah.
So, what is the moral there? So, yes, it's true. We have Christian religion. I think is one of the most. I don't know ever. I don't know much about the others, but it strikes me of being one of the cruelest religions. And the things that we've done in name of Christianity, just look back in, Christopher Columbus. He invaded the Americas and he killed thousands of Native
Yes.
Americans.
And
And
what
he's
happened?
died.
And
So I'm not proud of this.
yeah, and committed genocide. Yeah.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
you talked about something about people complaining about the monologues. There's a book by Dominic Petman called Infinite Distraction,
Oh, you'll have to send
and it
this.
is a great book. It is a new book, kind of new, 2016, I think. He talks about social media and how we are distracted all the time, and I think that's kind of why that people are now, they don't have the attention span to
That's right.
watch a 10-minute monologue. I think
Yeah.
they are just easily bored, they're easily distracted, they're looking at their phones, they're not even listening to the half of the conversation. And they, because one, we condition them to do so as a society, we have these technologies that condition people, and
Yeah.
two, these are very, very existential questions, and people don't want to talk about them. They don't want to think about them, because then how will they be able to sleep peacefully at night?
Yes. Yes, they touch a nerve. Absolutely. Yes, I agree. You'll have to send me that book, that name of the
I
book.
will. I will.
But and then I can actually post it in links and everything. And then if it's any extra material that we could put in coffee. So for people
Of
who
course.
just watch this part, for to support us, anything that is extra material and references, we could put them there in coffee as well, and then people can contribute to have access to things that might not be publicly there. They maybe you just have access to, or articles that you've written, for example. There are a lot of things I would like to talk about, but we're already into the hour. So there's these multiple camera things, angles that maybe I'm just going to go like that a moment, and then I can just flick through. Maybe we can talk about that in the next section
In
if
the
you want.
next, yes, session, I think so.
Yeah, I think
So we end on a cliffhanger, just like a streaming service show.
exactly, because then people can come and support us all over the place.
Yes. If you want to know more about multiple camera angles, support us and then come see us.
Yes, we're gonna do a second part, anyways. But yes, and also to follow Tuche. Follow. We can find you in Twitter. We can find you in Instagram. It's a bit tiny here on the screen, but I will post everything on on the YouTube links and everything there. So yeah, that's that. And then Alice is all over the place. Hey, something I didn't tell you. I'm
Oh,
writing.
you're so
I
busy. I love it.
It's crazy. Yeah, the social media is keeping me very busy as well. But yes, please just I hope that people have enjoyed this first part, because there's a lot more to come.
Yeah.
We have to talk about the setting, we have to talk about what we're learning, we have to talk about the ghost, the characters, but we kind of, I think we've set up like the foundations of
Kind of like
what.
an introduction.
Correct. Yes, and then what to expect from this, and some names here and there, but maybe now we need to put these names with the right faces, and then we can continue talking about it, because it's all about also, I think what we're doing here and what you like doing is analyzing, going down the rabbit hole, and help people to find more about their own identity. This is what Alice in Gothic Land is all about. But I think in general, we all kind of always searching for who we are and clarifying our purpose in life. And a lot of times we avoid pain and fear and all this. And actually what we need to do is face these moments. Being uncomfortable is good, because it makes you analyze excuse me why you are uncomfortable. And you have to go deep down in your brain and your psyche and see why am I uncomfortable with this. Ask these questions, and then you'll feel like, okay, I've worked on a problem here. I'm facing my fears. And horror does that, the Gothic does that, and talking about death, grief, loss definitely does that. So thank you very much, Tugce. And
thank you for having me, and lovely conversation. Thank you for the lovely conversation. It's always great to talk to you.
Thank you, likewise. So we'll continue on the next one. So don't go or come back or whatever. Okay, speak to you soon. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.